When my ex-wife showed up at my door at Christmas with tears in her eyes, wanting to hug me, I just smiled and said, "Sarah, you're 2 years too late." That's when she saw the gold wedding ring on my finger and the beautiful woman beside me serving coffee. Her face broke down. And that was just the beginning of the sweetest story of justice you'll hear today. My name is David. I'm 41 years old, and for 15 years I was the perfect husband. 15 years paying all the bills while Sarah found herself. 15 years hearing that I worked too much, that I wasn't romantic enough, that she needed space to grow as a person. And you know what her growth was? A 2-year affair with Marcus, the personal trainer at the country club where she did yoga with her friends. I discovered everything on a Friday in December, 2 years ago. I arrived home early to surprise my wife with flowers, and found a real surprise. She was moaning another man's name in our bedroom. In the bed I paid for, with the sheets I bought, under the roof I'd supported for 15 years. When she saw me at the door, she wasn't ashamed. She was angry. "David, you shouldn't be home right now," as if I were the intruder in my own life. Marcus ran out like a coward, leaving his pants behind. Sarah covered herself with the sheet and looked at me as if I were the problem. "We need to talk," she said. Talk. After betraying me in my own house, she wanted to talk. It was there that I realized love has an expiration date, and mine had expired a long time ago. I just hadn't understood why, because I was too busy being the perfect provider for a woman who didn't respect me. At that moment, looking at her in our bed with another man, one thing became clear. I was no longer David, who accepted anything for love. I was going to be the David who demanded respect. You won't believe how this story ends. How a woman who betrayed me, humiliated me, and threw me away like old trash, tried to crawl back 2 years later. And most importantly, you won't believe the sweet revenge that fate had in store for me. Stick with me because this story will show you that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. That Friday in December started like any other. I had closed a big deal at the construction company and wanted to celebrate with my wife. I stopped by the flower shop and bought 24 red roses, the ones she always said were her favorites. I paid $60 for flowers for a woman who was tearing me apart behind my back. When I got home at 3 in the afternoon, I saw a black Mustang in the driveway. I didn't recognize the car, but I thought it was Sarah visiting. She always had her friends from the club over for tea and to gossip about their husbands. I even found it funny how they complained about men who paid their bills. If I had known that one of them had brought the man who was sleeping with my wife. The front door was unlocked. I went upstairs thinking of surprising Sarah with the flowers. The noises were coming from our room. At first I thought she was watching one of those romantic movies she loved, but when I got closer, I recognized her voice, except she had never made those sounds with me before. I opened the door slowly and my world collapsed. My wife was on all fours on our bed, and behind her was Marcus, the personal trainer she always said was just a friend. The same Marcus that I had greeted dozens of times at the club, who knew I was married to Sarah, who accepted my money when I paid for extra sessions for her. He was in my house, in my bed, with my wife. What hurt the most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the naturalness of it. They didn't seem like two desperate lovers living a forbidden romance. They seemed like a couple, comfortable, intimate, as if it had been happening for a long time. Sarah moaned his name with a passion I hadn't seen in her eyes for years. Marcus held her hips like someone who knew every curve, every preference. For a second, I was paralyzed. 15 years of marriage. 15 years supporting that woman. 15 years believing we had something special. She always complained that I worked too much, that I came home tired, that I wasn't as romantic as in the beginning. Now I understood why. She was spending her romantic energy elsewhere. When I finally managed to move, I slammed the door shut. They jumped apart. Sarah looked at me with wide eyes, but it wasn't shame I saw there. It was irritation, as if I were an inconvenience who had arrived at the wrong time. "David, you shouldn't be home right now." Those were my wife's first words after 15 years of marriage. Not, "Forgive me," not, "I can explain," not, "It was a mistake." It was a complaint, as if I were the problem for being in my own home, at whatever time I wanted. Marcus ran out like a coward, grabbed his clothes, and disappeared through the back door. He left his jeans behind, which I found lying on my bedroom floor. Size 32. I wore a 36. Even in clothing size, that bastard was better than me, at least in her mind. Sarah pulled the sheet over her face, the sheet I'd bought the previous month, and stared at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "We need to talk," she said, in that voice of someone explaining the obvious to an idiot. "This didn't happen out of nowhere, David. We've been drifting apart for a long time." She's been distancing herself, as if betrayal were a natural consequence of distancing herself, as if I had any responsibility for her opening her legs for another man in our bed. But what shocked me most was her coldness. No tears, no despair, no, I don't know what came over me. She was calculating, prepared, as if she had already rehearsed this speech. "How long has it been?" I asked, still holding the roses I had bought for her. 24 red roses that now seemed like a cruel joke. "Does it matter?" she replied. "What matters is that you're never around, David. When was the last time you took me out to dinner? When was the last time we talked about something other than money or work?" The audacity was breathtaking. She was demanding my attention while betraying our marriage. She was blaming me for working to support her lifestyle. The yoga classes at the most expensive club in town, the designer clothes, the personal trainer she was sleeping with, all paid for with my sweat. "Sarah, I work so that you can have the life you want," I said, trying to remain calm. "You've never had to work. You've never worried about bills. You've never been without anything because I've always provided everything." "Providing isn't the same as loving, David," she said, getting up and going to the bathroom. "Marcus makes me feel wanted. He talks to me, listens to me, cares about what I think." That's when I understood that I wasn't dealing with remorse. I was dealing with justification. She hadn't cheated on impulse. She had cheated by choice. And worse, she was convinced that it was my fault. That night, after Sarah left to think, probably to Marcus's apartment, I sat in the living room and did something I should have done years ago. I calculated exactly how much I had invested in a woman who was cheating on me. The $450,000 house we bought, or rather, that I bought while she was choosing the wall colors. Her $48,000 BMW, because she deserved to drive something nice. The annual vacations to the Caribbean, always at the most expensive resorts because she couldn't mingle with ordinary people. The designer clothes, the handbags, the shoes that cost more than my monthly salary when we started dating. 15 years supporting a woman who never worked a day in her life. 15 years paying for her classes, painting, dance, yoga, Pilates, French, which she never finished. 15 years funding her socialite lifestyle while I worked 10 hours a day so she could find herself. The country club where she met Marcus, $300 a month membership. The weekly massages she said she needed for stress, $120 a week. The personal trainer, ironically, the same one who was sleeping with her, $200 per session, 3 times a week. I was literally paying the guy to train my wife to cheat on me better. But it wasn't just the money. It was the 15 years of my life that I dedicated to a woman who didn't respect me. 15 years coming home tired from work and pretending everything was fine when she complained that I wasn't romantic anymore. How can a man be romantic with a woman who sees him as a walking ATM? For 15 years, she heard me say I worked too much, that I needed to live more, that money wasn't everything in life. But when it came time to cut expenses, when I suggested she could work, that we could save on vacations or club memberships, she looked at me like I was crazy. "David, do you want me to live like a pauper?" 15 years without recognition, without gratitude, without respect. I was the invisible provider, the man who worked so she could play the lady of the house. And when I came home wanting affection, wanting to talk, wanting attention from my own wife, she was tired, had a headache, needed to relax. Now I understood why. All her sexual energy was being spent on Marcus. All the interest, all the passion, all the attention that should have been mine was going to a personal trainer who knew my wife better than I did after 15 years of marriage. It was that night, while calculating the numbers from my own investigation, that I made a decision. Sarah could stay with Marcus, but she wouldn't stay with me for another minute. Sarah returned on Sunday, 2 days later. She arrived looking like she was going to do me a huge favor by explaining why the betrayal was my fault. She sat on the sofa I paid for, in the living room I decorated, and began the speech she had rehearsed with her friends. "David, I didn't want you to find out like this," she began, as if the problem was the manner of the discovery, not the betrayal itself. "But maybe it's better this way. We can finally be honest with each other. being honest. A woman who had been cheating on me for months wanted to talk about honesty. "For how long, Sarah?" I asked, looking directly into her eyes. "Does it matter?" "What matters is that I'm happy with him, David. For the first time in years, I feel alive. 2 years." She confirmed it without confirming it. 2 years sleeping with another man while I worked like a horse to maintain her standard of living. 2 years pretending to love me while plotting how to replace me with someone better. "He's going to marry me," she said, as if it were a gift. "Marcus wants to build a life with me. He sees me as a woman, not as a housekeeper." Housekeeper. I almost laughed. Sarah wouldn't even clean her own coffee cup. We had a maid who came 3 times a week because my princess couldn't be worn out with hard work. "And what do you want from me?" I asked. "I want a divorce, David, but I want us to be civilized. I'm not going to ask for anything absurd. Just half the house, half of your pension, alimony to help me get settled until I find work, and the car, half the house that I bought, half the retirement savings that I built. Alimony for a woman who cheated on me, the car that I paid for, and she still wanted me to be civilized." "Sarah," I said, standing up, "you have 2 options. First, you pack your clothes and leave today. We have an amicable divorce, and you keep what you brought to this marriage, which was nothing. Second, you want to fight it in court, and I'll prove you were cheating on me, and you leave with nothing." She laughed. She literally laughed in my face. "David, do you think I'm an idiot? I know my rights. 15 years of marriage entitle me to half of everything, and you have no way to prove anything." That's when I smiled. For the first time in 2 days, I truly smiled. "Sarah, you forgot something," I said, grabbing my phone. "We have security cameras at home." Sarah's face when I mentioned the cameras was the funniest thing I've seen in 15 years of marriage. All that air of superiority evaporated in 2 seconds. The woman who 5 minutes ago was giving me ultimatums as if she were always right turned into a rag doll. "What cameras?" she whispered. "The ones I installed last year after the robberies in the neighborhood. Remember when I talked to you about it? You said it was a good idea to protect ourselves." I paused, savoring the moment. "They record everything, Sarah. Entrance, living room, hallway, and especially the bedroom." She tried to maintain her composure, but I could see the panic in her eyes. Her mind was racing, calculating how many times she had brought Marcus here, how much evidence existed of the betrayal she thought she had perfectly concealed. "That's an invasion of privacy," she said, her voice trembling. "In my own house? With my own wife?" I laughed. "Sarah, do you realize how ridiculous you're talking?" That's when she tried her last card. Tears. The same tears she used when she wanted a new car, a more expensive trip, a more expensive gift. But this time, I was immune. "David, please, let's resolve this like adults. It doesn't have to be this cruel." Cruel. The woman who had been cheating on me for 2 years was calling me cruel for having evidence of her infidelity. "Do you know the difference between us, Sarah?" I said, sitting back down in the armchair. "I never broke a promise. In 15 years, I was the husband I promised to be at the altar. I worked, provided, respected, loved. You broke every vow you made." She tried to come closer, but I raised my hand. "No, now you listen to me. You have until tomorrow to leave my house. You can take your personal clothing, your beauty products, your jewelry, the ones you didn't buy with my money. The rest stays." "What if I don't leave?" Her voice had lost all its arrogance. "If you don't leave, I'll send the recordings to all your friends at the club, to your mother, to Marcus's boss, and especially to the lawyer who's going to handle our divorce." I stood up and looked at her one last time as her husband. "Your choice, Sarah." She left that same night. She packed her bags, whimpering, as if she were the victim of the situation. She took 3 suitcases of clothes and left 15 years of my life behind, as if they were worthless. The house fell silent after she left. But it wasn't the empty silence I expected. It was a silence of freedom. The first 6 months after Sarah left were the strangest of my life. For the first time in 15 years, I could do what I wanted, when I wanted, without having to explain myself to anyone. You could watch sports on TV without hearing complaints. I could eat pizza on the couch without being judged. He could work late without being accused of not paying attention. But freedom didn't come easy. There were days I'd wake up and still expect to hear Sarah complaining about something. There were nights I'd come home and say, "Hi" to the emptiness, out of habit. 15 years of routine don't die overnight. The divorce went faster than I expected. With the evidence I had, her lawyer advised her to accept my proposal. She would leave with nothing but her personal clothes, and I wouldn't release the recordings that would destroy her reputation. Sarah still tried to negotiate, but when I showed her lawyer a video clip, Marcus arriving at my house on a Tuesday morning and leaving only in the late afternoon, the conversation changed tone. With Sarah out of my life, I began to rediscover who David was without being someone's provider. I started working out again. Ironically, I found a better personal trainer than Marcus at a cheaper gym. I started hanging out again with the friends I'd lost during the marriage because Sarah always thought they were vulgar. I renovated the house my way. I removed all the decorations she had chosen. Those expensive and uncomfortable pieces of furniture that looked more like a showroom than a home, and bought things that I liked. A 75-inch TV to watch games, a giant soft sofa where I could relax after work, a new barbecue grill to entertain friends. But the best change wasn't in the house. It was in myself. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and liked what I saw. A 41-year-old man, successful, in control of his own life, free to choose his own future, with no one to please, no one to support, no one to make me feel inadequate. It was around that time that I met Amanda. She was a real estate agent, and she came to show me her neighbor's house that was for sale. A beautiful 35-year-old woman, brown hair, green eyes. But what caught my attention most was the way she spoke. Direct, intelligent, funny, hard-working. Unlike Sarah, Amanda had been supporting herself since she was 18. We talked for 2 hours on the sidewalk. She laughed at my jokes, asked intelligent questions about my work, and told funny stories about her clients. When she left, I realized I had smiled more in those 2 hours than in the last 2 years of my marriage. Amanda was nothing like Sarah. Where Sarah was calculating, Amanda was spontaneous. Where Sarah was demanding, Amanda was grateful. Where Sarah saw me as a provider, Amanda saw me as a partner. Our first date was at a simple restaurant that I chose. Sarah always insisted on the most expensive places in town, not because the food was better, but because she wanted to be seen in the right places. Amanda laughed when I said I knew a great pizzeria. "I love pizza," she said, "and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Good food and good company are all I need." Good food and good company. Simple concepts that Sarah had complicated beyond measure. Amanda paid her share of the bill without me even offering. In fact, she insisted. "I invited you out too," she said. "Why would you pay for everything?" It was so different that I almost didn't know how to react. 15 years of being treated like a walking credit card, and now I had a woman wanting to split the bill. She worked 6 days a week selling real estate. She woke up at 6 in the morning, met with clients until 9 at night, and still had energy left to talk about anything. Politics, sports, movies, books. Amanda had her own opinion on everything and didn't need to agree with me to please me. "You're very different from the men I usually meet," she told me on our third date. "Different how? You're not trying to impress me with money. You're not bragging about ex-girlfriends. You're not pretending to be someone you're not." She smiled. "You're genuine, David. That's rare these days." Genuine. No one had ever called me genuine. Sarah always said I was basic, unsophisticated, predictable. For Amanda, those same qualities were virtues. 6 months after our first meeting, Amanda moved into my house. Not because she needed to. She had her own apartment, paid for with her own work, but because we both wanted to be together. What a revolutionary concept. 2 adults choosing to share their lives because they like each other. She brought a completely different energy to the house. Amanda cooked, and cooked well. Unlike Sarah, who could barely fry an egg, she cleaned, organized, and took care of the plants that I never managed to keep alive. But not because it was my obligation to do so, because she wanted our house to be special, our home. She'd been talking like that since the second week she was there. Not your house where I'm living, not the house you let me use, our home. On our first Christmas together, Amanda insisted we cook the turkey together. "I want it to be special," she said. Our first Christmas. Sarah always hired a caterer because cooking was too much work. Amanda was as excited as a child to roast a turkey. It was then that I realized I hadn't just gotten over Sarah. I had found the partner I'd been looking for my whole life. After the divorce was finalized, Sarah became a ghost in my life. 0 contact, 0 communication, as if 15 years of marriage had never existed. Her friends stopped greeting me on the street. The people at the club acted as if I were invisible when I passed by. At first, I was curious about how she was doing. Had Marcus really married her? Had she gotten the job she always said she'd look for someday? But over time, curiosity turned to indifference. I was too busy building a new life to be thinking about the old one. Amanda laughed when I told her I was curious about Sarah. Honey, she should mind her own business. You have better things to think about. And she was right. I had much better things to think about. The friends who came back into my life after the divorce had interesting stories. Apparently, Sarah always spoke ill of me to anyone who would listen. I was a workaholic, unromantic, only thought about money. The funny thing is, she said this to people who knew exactly where the money that funded her lifestyle came from. Dude, we always thought it was weird, Mike, my college friend, told me at a barbecue at home. You were working like crazy while she was at the club chatting with her friends about how you weren't paying attention to her, and you didn't say anything. How were we supposed to tell you? You seemed happy. We thought you two had reached an agreement. He took a sip of beer. But when we found out about the betrayal, nobody was surprised. No one was surprised. Apparently everyone saw what I refused to see, that Sarah didn't respect me, didn't love me, only tolerated me because of what I provided for her. Amanda listened to these stories with the patience of someone getting to know the past of the man she loved. She never judged, never said, "How stupid you were," never made me feel bad for having been used. On the contrary, "You're a good man, David," she said one night, hugging me on the sofa. "You loved with all your heart. It's not your fault she didn't know how to appreciate it." With Amanda, I was learning the difference between being loved and being used, between being respected and being tolerated, between having a partner and having a dependent. The difference was enormous, and I never wanted to go back to what I had before. 2 years have passed without Sarah existing in my life. 2 years of peace, prosperity, and true happiness. 2 years discovering that marriage could be a real partnership, not exploitation disguised as love. And then Christmas arrived, and it changed everything. It was Christmas Eve, December 23rd. Amanda and I were making the final preparations to welcome my sister Janet and her family for lunch the next day. The house was decorated the way I liked it. Nothing overdone, everything cozy. A full-sized tree in the living room, golden lights in the windows, the smell of cinnamon wafting from the kitchen where Amanda was baking cookies. "Honey, can you go get the ham from the refrigerator in the garage?" Amanda asked me, covered in flour but smiling. She was making everything from scratch. Cookies, pies, even the bread we were going to serve. Sarah bought everything ready-made because she didn't have time for these things. I was returning from the garage with the ham when I heard the doorbell. "It must be the neighbor bringing the borrowed chairs," I shouted to Amanda. I opened the door, smiling, expecting to see Tom with the extra chairs he had promised to lend. But it wasn't Tom at my door. It was Sarah. The first thing I thought was that she looked tired. Her hair, which was always perfectly styled at the most expensive hair salon in town, was now somewhat faded, with roots showing. Her clothes, which used to always be designer brands, now looked ordinary. But what caught my attention the most were her eyes, the eyes of someone who hadn't slept well in a long time. "David," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "can I talk to you?" For a second, I was speechless. 2 years without seeing this woman, and she shows up at my door on Christmas Eve as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" I needed to see you." She looked over my shoulder, trying to see inside the house. "Can I come in? Just for a few minutes?" That's when Amanda appeared behind me, drying her hands on her apron. Beautiful, smiling, curious about who was at the door. When Sarah saw Amanda, her face changed completely, from hopeful to shocked, to hurt. "Oh," Sarah said, looking from me to Amanda and back to me. You have company." "Sarah, this is Amanda, my fiancée," I said, putting my arm around Amanda's waist. "Amanda, this is Sarah, my ex-wife." The world stopped for a second. Sarah looked at the engagement ring on Amanda's hand. A ring I had chosen with love, not out of obligation like her wedding band had been. Then she looked at the gold wedding band on my finger, a symbol of a commitment she never made to me, and it was there that Sarah collapsed. Sarah started crying right there at my door, tears streaming down her face like a lost child. It wasn't the calculated crying she used to get what she wanted during the wedding. It was genuine despair. "David, I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed. "The biggest mistake of my life. Marcus left me. He never wanted to marry me. He just wanted to have fun." Amanda looked at me with compassion, not for Sarah, but for me, knowing that the situation was uncomfortable. My fiancé had a class that my ex-wife never had. "Sarah, are you all right?" Amanda asked gently. "Would you like a glass of water?" But Sarah barely glanced at Amanda. She was focused on me as if I were the last lifeline in a shipwreck. "Marcus used me, David. He made me believe we were going to have a future together. But when the divorce went through, when he saw I wasn't going to get anything, he changed completely. He said he always knew I was a gold digger, that I was only with him for fun. Gold digger. The personal trainer had called my ex-wife a gold digger. The irony was delicious. "David, I know I was an idiot. I know I hurt you. But I've learned my lesson. I value you now. I know what an amazing man you are. Appreciation." She wanted to talk about appreciation now, 2 years after betraying me in our own bed. "Sarah," I said calmly, "you need to leave. Please, listen to me. Just 5 minutes." She tried to come in, but I blocked her entrance with my body. "I can prove I've changed. I got a job, David. I'm working at a clothing store in the mall. I know it's not much, but I'm trying to be independent." A clothing store in the mall. After 15 years of being supported by me, living like a queen, now she was selling clothes in the mall and wanted me to be impressed by her effort. "I'm not interested in your new life, Sarah," I said. "I have my own new life, a good life." "But we were married for 15 years, she shouted, her voice cracking. "Doesn't that mean anything to you? Our whole history together?" Amanda squeezed my hand, silently offering me strength. She knew this was difficult for me, not because I still had feelings for Sarah, but because nobody likes to see someone begging at their door. "Our history, Sarah, is one of you using me for 15 years and betraying me with another man. That story ended the day you chose Marcus over me." She moved closer, trying to touch me, but I backed away. "David, you can't deny me a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance." That's when I smiled. Not a cruel smile, but the smile of someone who was finally at peace. "Sarah, you had 15 years of chances. 15 years to love me, respect me, be a real wife. You chose to waste them all." Sarah realized that tears weren't working and changed her strategy. She wiped her face and tried to regain her composure, reverting to the manipulative Sarah I knew. "David, you're making a mistake. Do you think she pointed at Amanda as if she were an object, "really loves you? She's with you for the money, just like all those younger women looking for a stable man." Amanda didn't lose her composure. On the contrary, she laughed. She literally laughed in my ex-wife's face. "Honey," Amanda told me, "does your ex have some kind of mental problem? I make more money than you." She turned to Sarah. "Honey, I'm a real estate agent. Last year I sold almost $2 million worth of properties. I don't need a man to support me." Sarah's face was priceless. She had assumed Amanda was a younger version of herself, beautiful, self-serving, dependent. Discovering that Amanda was successful and independent shattered the last argument she had. "But David," Sarah tried again, "you know you'll never find someone who knows you like I do. 15 years of history can't be replaced like that." "You're right," I said. 15 years of you complaining about me, putting me down, making me feel inadequate. Amanda has known me for 2 years and already values me more than you have in 15. Sarah tried a different approach. Nostalgia. "Do you remember our honeymoon in Cabo? Do you remember our first apartment? Do you remember how happy we were in the beginning?" "I remember," I said. "I remember working 2 jobs so you wouldn't have to. I remember you complaining that the apartment was too small. I remember you started treating me like the provider from our honeymoon onwards. I was young, David. I didn't know how to appreciate what I had. And now you know. Because it seems like you only know how to value things now that you've lost them. That's not love, Sarah. That's convenience." She made one last desperate move. She threw herself into my arms. He literally threw himself at me, hugging me tightly, trying to kiss me. "David, please. I love you. I've always loved you." Marcus meant nothing. I moved away from her firmly but without aggression. Amanda didn't seem worried at all. She knew exactly what I was going to do. "Sarah, if you loved me, you would never have betrayed me. If you loved me, you would never have belittled me. If you loved me, You would never have left me for another man. I paused, choosing my words carefully. You don't love me, Sarah. You love the security I represented. And you lost that security the day you chose Marcus. For a moment, she remained silent, absorbing the utter rejection. Then, the mask finally fell away. You'll regret this, David. When she leaves you for someone younger and richer, you'll remember who truly loved you. Amanda smiled and showed her ring. Honey, we've already set a wedding date for March. And unlike you, when I make a promise, I keep it. After Amanda showed her wedding ring, Sarah stopped pretending. The mask of a repentant woman finally fell off, and what remained was something I had never seen before. Sarah desperate, without options, without a plan. You don't understand, David, she said, her voice hoarse. I have nothing left. Nothing. Marcus left me penniless. He said I was too expensive to keep, that I spent more than I earned. It was ironic. The same Marcus who, she said, valued her as a woman, had discovered exactly what I already knew. Sarah was a bottomless pit of expenses and demands. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment in Hilliard, she continued. Hilliard was the cheapest neighborhood in the city, where people who earned minimum wage lived. I work 8 hours a day selling clothes to be able to pay $800 in rent. I eat instant noodles for dinner, David. Instant noodles. The woman who only ate at expensive restaurants, who turned her nose up at anything that cost less than $30, was eating instant noodles. I wake up at 6 in the morning to catch 2 buses to the mall. My feet hurt so much at the end of the day that I cry in the shower. I wear the same clothes 3 times a week because I don't have money for laundry. Amanda squeezed my hand, but not out of concern for Sarah. It was to remind me that I shouldn't feel guilty about the situation my ex-wife had created for herself. Sarah, you chose this when you chose to betray me, I said calmly. Did I choose this? She screamed. Did I choose to be abandoned? Did I choose to find out that the man I left my husband for only wanted casual sex? Easy sex. Now she admitted that's what it had been. Easy sex with a personal trainer who didn't have to work to get her. You chose to betray me, I repeated. Everything that happened afterward was a consequence of your choice. David, I beg you, just help me get out of this situation. I promise I won't bother you anymore. Just lend me money so I can get a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. And there it was, the real reason for the visit. It wasn't love. It wasn't longing. It wasn't genuine regret. It was money. Sarah was there asking for money from the man she had betrayed and humiliated. How much? I asked, just out of curiosity.
$5,000, just to get myself settled. I'll pay it back as soon as I get a better job. $5,000. For the woman who had cost me tens of thousands over 15 years, $5,000 seemed like a bargain, but it wasn't about the amount. Sarah, I said, looking her straight in the eyes, if I give you $5,000 today, how long until you show up here again asking for more? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything.
I won't ask for anything else, David, I swear. How did you swear allegiance at the altar? Total silence. Even Amanda was quiet, waiting to see how I was going to finish this. Sarah, do you want to know what the hardest thing has been over the last 2 years? I asked, leaning against the door to get comfortable. It wasn't getting over what you did. It wasn't dealing with the betrayal. It was understanding how I let it go on for so long. She looked at me confused, as if I were speaking another language. For 15 years I accepted crumbs of affection while you lived like a queen with my money. For 15 years I believed you loved me, when in reality you only loved what I provided for you. That's not true, David. I loved you. Sarah, love isn't about receiving everything and giving nothing. Love isn't about humiliating your partner and complaining that they aren't good enough. Love isn't about cheating and then blaming the betrayed. Amanda nodded beside me. She knew exactly what true love was like because we lived it every day. Do you know the difference between you and Amanda? I continued. Amanda chooses me every day. When she wakes up in the morning and sees me by her side, she's happy. When I get home from work, she's happy to see me. When we plan our future together, she gets excited about the possibilities. Sarah was listening to every word as if it were a stab wound. You, Sarah, tolerated me. I was a necessary evil in your perfect life, the boring man who paid the bills so you could have fun with more interesting people. That's not... Yes, it is. I didn't let her finish. And the proof is that the first man who gave you attention, you ran into his arms, without thinking twice, without considering 15 years of marriage. You traded me for a personal trainer because he was younger, more handsome, more exciting. Tears streamed down her face again, but this time I didn't even feel sorry for her. And now that the personal trainer has dumped you just like you dumped me, you come back here wanting me to save you again. You haven't changed at all, Sarah. You're just desperate. David, please. No. My voice came out firm, final. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to lend you money. I'm not going to save you from the consequences of your choices. You're an adult woman who made adult decisions. Now you live with them. Amanda shook my hand proudly. She knew that was the closure I needed. Sarah, I wish you good luck in your new life. I hope you learn to value people before you lose them. But you won't learn anything more from me because we have nothing left to talk about. She stood at my door for a long moment, as if she couldn't accept that 15 years of history had truly ended. Finally, she turned to leave. David, she said without looking at me, when she leaves you, don't come after me. I laughed. For the first time in that whole conversation, I truly laughed. Sarah, if Amanda leaves me, I'll find another woman who values me. You were the last person in my life who didn't respect me. Never again. After Sarah left, Amanda and I stood in the doorway for a few seconds, processing what had just happened. It was strange to see the ghost of my past reappear just when I was happiest in my life. Are you okay, baby? Amanda asked, hugging me from behind. I'm great, I replied. And it was true. In fact, I'm better than great. For the first time in 15 years, I said everything I needed to say to her. Amanda smiled and kissed my neck. I'm proud of you. You were firm, but not cruel. You were clear, but not disrespectful. You were perfect. We returned to the kitchen where Amanda's cookies were cooling. The scent of cinnamon and vanilla had returned to fill the house, erasing any negative traces that Sarah's visit might have left behind. Do you think she'll come back? Amanda asked, continuing to decorate the cookies. No, I said confidently. Sarah is too proud to come back after today's humiliation. And even if she does, the answer will be the same. The next day, Christmas was exactly as I had always wanted it to be. My sister Janet arrived with her husband Tom and their 2 children. Amanda welcomed everyone as if they were family for years. She had prepared an incredible lunch, all made with love and care. David, your fiancé is a sweetheart, Janet whispered to me while Amanda played with the children in the living room. She's so different from Sarah. Different how? Sarah always seemed like she was doing everyone a favor by being there. Amanda seems genuinely happy to have us here. It was true. Sarah always treated visits from my family as a burden. She complained about the mess, the food, the noise. She made it clear that she would rather be doing anything else. Amanda, on the other hand, had insisted that we welcome everyone. I want to get to know your family properly, she had said. During lunch, Tom told funny stories from work. Janet updated us on the children's lives. The kids laughed and made a mess like kids do. It was exactly the kind of warm Christmas that Sarah always said was too vulgar for her taste. Amanda, this turkey is amazing, Tom said. Where did you learn to cook like this? My mother, Amanda replied. She always said that food made with love tastes different. Food made with love. Sarah had never understood that concept. For her, expensive food was automatically better than homemade food. After lunch, we exchanged gifts. I had bought a pearl necklace for Amanda, not because it was expensive, but because I knew she would love it. Sarah always received jewelry and kept it in a drawer as if it were an investment. Amanda put the necklace on immediately and didn't take it off all day. Her gift to me was even better, a framed photo of us with the inscription, "For the man who teaches me every day what true love is." That night, after everyone had left and we were cleaning the house together, I stopped and looked at Amanda. Her hair was tied in a ponytail. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts and she was washing the dishes from dinner. "What was that?" she asked, noticing that I was looking. "I love you," I said. And for the first time in my life, I know what that really means. 6 months after that Christmas, Amanda and I were married. The ceremony was simple, in a small church with family and close friends. None of the excesses that Sarah always wanted: an orchestra, hundreds of guests, a party that cost more than a new car. Amanda chose a beautiful yet simple dress, did her own hair, and was more radiant than any bride I had ever seen. During the vows, she cried, not from nervousness or stress, but from pure happiness. "David," she said in front of the altar, "you taught me that true love isn't about getting everything you want. It's about wanting to give everything you have, giving everything you have." Sarah had never understood that side of love. For her, love was about receiving gifts, trips, money, attention, status. Amanda understood that love was a two-way street. Our honeymoon was a week in a cabin by the lake. Nothing extravagant, but it was the happiest week of my life. We cooked together, went hiking, and stayed up talking late into the night looking at the stars. Amanda was happy just being with me, without needing expensive entertainment or sophisticated activities. "Do you know what the best part of the last 2 years has been?" I asked her one night while we were lying in the hammock on the porch. "Tell me." "Discovering that I'm a better person than I thought. With Sarah, I always felt inadequate. Not romantic enough, not interesting enough, not successful enough. With you, I feel like the best version of myself." "It's because you are the best version of yourself," she said, kissing me. Sarah couldn't see that because she was looking for the flaws. I'm looking for the qualities. Looking for the qualities. What a simple yet revolutionary concept. Professionally, things were going well too. Without Sarah draining my emotional energy and money, I was able to concentrate better on my work. The company was growing. I had hired 2 new employees, and for the first time in years, I was able to invest in the future, instead of just paying the bills for the present. Amanda continued selling properties and was doing very well. We had become one of those partnerships that complemented each other perfectly. She was more social. I was more of a planner. She was more spontaneous. I was more practical. But we both shared the same values: hard work, mutual respect, honesty. One day, at the end of June, Amanda arrived home with some news. "Honey, I ran into Sarah at the mall today." My stomach clenched for a second. "So?" "She's working at a lingerie store. Apparently, she was having a difficult day because she was arguing with a customer about exchanging merchandise." "Did you speak to her?" "She saw me, but pretended not to recognize me." "But David," Amanda paused, "she seems worn out, as if she's aged 5 years in these 6 months." I felt a pang of something. It wasn't exactly pity, more like sadness for the person Sarah could have been if she had made different choices. "Do you regret not helping her?" Amanda asked, reading my thoughts. "No," I replied without hesitation, "but I'm sad that she's reached the point where she needs to learn the hard way." In August, I was at the bank taking care of some company business when I saw Sarah in the teller line. She looked different. Shorter hair, simple clothes, tired posture. She seemed like a completely different person from the arrogant woman who had shown up at my door at Christmas. She saw me too, and for a moment our eyes met. There was no drama, no awkwardness. She waved briefly, and I waved back, like 2 people who knew each other from somewhere, nothing more. After she finished at the checkout, she approached me. "David, hi." "Hi, Sarah. How are you?" "Well," she said, but it was obvious she wasn't. "I heard you got married. Congratulations." "Thanks." We were silent for a few seconds. She seemed to want to say something, but didn't know how to begin. "David, I wanted to apologize," she finally said. "Not for Christmas. Well, for that too, but for everything. For all the years I treated you badly, for not appreciating what we had, for betraying you." Those were the first genuine apologies she had ever given me. "I accept your apology, Sarah. You were right about everything. About Marcus, about me not having changed at all. I was still wanting someone to save me instead of saving myself. And now I'm learning to fend for myself. It's difficult, but it's honest. For the first time in my life, I'm living with the consequences of my own choices." There was something different about her voice, a humility I had never seen before. "I'm not asking you to be my friend," she continued. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why you didn't want to help me. And you were right. Sarah, I hope you find your happiness. Truly. Thank you." She smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "Your wife seems like an amazing person. You deserve someone who values you." She started to walk away, but turned around once more. "David, if I had been different, if I had valued you from the beginning, do you think we could have worked out?" It was a dangerous question, laden with what-ifs, but I knew the answer. "Sarah, there's no version of you that could have competed with the woman I have today. Not because you're bad, but because Amanda and I are compatible in a way I didn't even know existed. She nodded, accepting the truth. Take good care of her, she said, and left. Driving home that afternoon, I thought about the encounter. Sarah seemed to be truly learning and growing, but it was too late for both of us. Sometimes life doesn't offer second chances. It offers lessons. That night, I told Amanda about my encounter with Sarah at the bank. We were in the kitchen preparing dinner together, a routine I loved and had never shared with Sarah, who considered cooking maid's work. How did you feel seeing her? Amanda asked, chopping vegetables for the salad. Relieved, I replied without hesitation. Relieved that I don't feel anything anymore. No anger, no hurt, no pity. She's just someone from my past who made bad choices. And how do you feel about your choices? That was an interesting question. Proud. For the first time in my life, I stood up for myself. I set boundaries. I didn't let anyone use me just because they said they loved me. Amanda stopped cutting and looked at me. You know that's what attracted me to you when we met? What? You had the confidence of someone who knew their own worth. It wasn't arrogance, it was self-love. Many divorced men I knew were desperate or bitter. You were at peace. At peace. That was exactly it. After 15 years living in the anxiety of trying to please an impossible-to-please woman, I had finally found peace. Do you know what the difference was between my marriage to Sarah and my marriage to you? I asked. Tell me. With Sarah, I was always trying to become the man she wanted. With you, you accept me as I am and inspire me to be better by choice, not by obligation. It was true. Sarah always had a list of things I needed to change. Be more romantic, earn more money, be more social, be less of a workaholic. The list never ended, because no matter what I changed, there was always something new that was wrong with me. Amanda, on the other hand, liked who I was.
Workaholic. You have an incredible work ethic. Not very social? You prioritize quality over quantity in relationships, not romantic in a movie-like way. You demonstrate love through actions, not empty words. David, Amanda said, coming to hug me, do you want to know the difference between a woman who loves you and a woman who uses you? Which? A woman who loves you wants to see you happy, even when it doesn't directly benefit her. A woman who uses you only wants to see you useful.
Seeing you as useful. That was exactly it. For Sarah, I was useful. An efficient provider, a convenient husband, a man who solved her problems so she could have fun without responsibilities. For Amanda, I was a partner, someone she wanted to build a life with, not someone she wanted to take a life from. Do you know what the greatest gift Sarah ever gave me was? I asked. Which? She betrayed me. If she hadn't betrayed me, I probably would have stayed in that dead marriage forever, thinking that was love. Amanda laughed. Then I should send her a thank you card. Actually, I said, kissing my wife, you should send a card to Marcus. If he hadn't shown up, Sarah might never have revealed who she really was.